There's a strength method that's been quietly making a comeback, and it doesn't ask you to count a single rep. It's called the loaded carry, and it builds the kind of full-body strength that holds up for decades, not just until your next workout. All it takes is picking something moderately heavy up and walking with it. But the way you carry that weight changes which parts of your body it's actually building, and one of the variations coming up targets a weakness almost nobody trains on purpose. We'll start with the most basic version and work our way into ones you may have never tried. The first way to load this pattern is the farmer's carry, and if you've ever hauled a couple of paint cans or grocery bags in from the car in one trip just to avoid making two, you've already done a rough version of it without realizing what it was actually building. But here's the thing, as simple as this looks, there are two common mistakes that quietly cut the benefits in half, if not avoided, and we'll get to exactly what those are in just a moment. A strong grip carries over into almost everything you do without you noticing. From twisting off a stuck bottle cap to hauling a heavy cooler up out of the trunk without your hand giving out halfway there. But the farmer's carry does more than build your grip. It quietly trains your shoulders to stay locked in place under load too, and there's a variation coming up on this list that takes that same shoulder stability and turns it into something close to insane strength if you stick with it consistently. And it's not just your hands and shoulders doing the work. Standing tall while you carry real weight for real distance forces your core to brace the entire time just to keep you upright, which builds the same kind of stability that keeps your back from rounding forward. That's the posture behind walking into a room, standing straight instead of hunched, and it's the difference between a body that holds itself up and one that's slowly given up on the job. Now, about those two mistakes. The first one is walking too fast. Rushing through the carry to get it over with turns it into cardio instead of strength work, and it lets your shoulders creep up toward your ears the moment your grip starts to burn, instead of staying locked down where they belong. The second happens right at the pickup, when people brace for speed instead of bracing through their core and setting their shoulders back first, which is exactly how a rounded back finds its way into a movement that's supposed to build a stronger one. It's a small mistake in the moment, but repeated over dozens of sets, it's the difference between a carry that builds your posture and one that quietly wears it down instead. Slow the pace down until it almost feels too easy and keep your ribs stacked over your hips the entire way. 3 rounds of 40 steps is a strong starting point, resting a full minute between each round while you shake your hands out and let your grip recover. But the farmer's carry only trains one direction of core strength, straight ahead. There's a version of this same movement that flips that entirely, loading just one side of your body instead of both, and it exposes a kind of stability that walking with 2 even hands can actually hide. Picture carrying one heavy bag through a parking lot while your other hand stays completely empty, and you already know the fight that starts happening through your entire midsection just to keep yourself walking straight instead of leaning to one side. That fight is exactly what the suitcase carry is built to train, and it's named after the exact scenario you just pictured. Grab a single weight in one hand, whether that's a dumbbell, a kettlebell, or a heavy bag, and walk while keeping your body upright and level the entire time, resisting the pull to lean toward the loaded side. That resistance is the entire point. Every step forces the muscles running along your side and through your core to fire, just to keep you from tipping over, and that's a kind of core strength that carrying weight evenly in both hands never asks for. Think about that for a second. Your core spends most of its life balancing you against forces that come from one side, whether that's carrying a bag on one arm, holding something against one hip, or catching yourself on uneven ground. And this is the one carry variation that trains exactly that. A body that can carry an uneven load without buckling is a body you can trust in situations that don't wait for you to get into position first, whether that's grabbing a fallen bag off the floor with one hand or catching a stumble before it turns into a fall. Switch hands halfway through each round so you're building that stability evenly on both sides instead of creating an imbalance of your own. 3 rounds of 30 to 40 steps per side is a strong target, resting close to a minute before you switch hands and go again. So these first 2 carries are already covering the kind of grip, shoulder, and core stability that most training programs skip over completely. And that's kind of what FitZip is about, cutting through the noise and giving you the stuff that actually moves the needle. Most programs are built around the muscles you can see and skip the small stabilizers that hold everything else together. That's exactly why so many people build strength in one area and still feel stiff, achy, or like their body is quietly breaking down somewhere else. I created the Reset Your Body Blueprint, and it's the foundation program built around those overlooked stabilizer muscles that get ignored. Aging has less to do with getting older and everything to do with what happens when we stop moving certain ways and let those stabilizers go quiet on us. If you want a body that can keep doing the exercises and activities you love for years to come instead of slowly breaking down, There's a QR code on the screen for you to scan with your phone, or check the link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get into the third carry variation. There's a version of this pattern that takes everything you've built so far and puts it directly over your head, and it exposes weak shoulders faster than almost anything else you could do in a gym. This is the overhead carry, and it's the variation that turns the shoulder stability from the farmer's carry into something far more demanding. Press a single weight straight overhead, whether that's a dumbbell or a kettlebell, until your arm is fully locked out, then walk while keeping that arm stacked directly over your shoulder the entire time instead of letting it drift forward or out to the side. Every step challenges your shoulder to stay stable in the most exposed position it can be in, locked out and loaded with nothing supporting it but your own strength. And that stability is exactly what keeps your shoulder from feeling like it's about to give out the moment you lift something over your head in real life, whether that's swinging a duffel bag into an overhead bin or setting a box on a high shelf. And here's where it gets even deeper. Keeping a heavy weight locked overhead while you walk forces your entire core to brace just to keep you from arching your back and leaning to compensate, so this carry is quietly training your midsection at the same time it's training your shoulder. The biggest mistake here is letting the working arm creep forward instead of staying stacked directly over your shoulder, which shifts the load off your shoulder and onto your lower back instead. Keep your ribs pulled down and your ear away from your shoulder the entire time you're walking. 3 rounds of 20 to 30 steps per side is a strong starting point, resting a full minute before switching arms and repeating. But there's one more way to load this pattern, and it moves the weight somewhere neither of these carries have touched yet, right up against your chest instead of down at your side or overhead. This is the goblet carry, and it trains your body in a way that's easy to underestimate until you're a few steps in. Hold a single weight against your chest with both hands, whether that's a kettlebell cupped by the horns or a dumbbell held vertically, and walk while keeping your elbows pulled in tight instead of letting them flare out to the sides. Holding weight that close to your body forces your upper back and core to brace together just to keep you from hunching forward under the load, and that's exactly the kind of bracing behind carrying a heavy laundry basket up a flight of stairs or holding a box against your chest without your back rounding the entire way there. It's a subtle position, but there's nowhere to hide once the weight is loaded, since your upper back has to stay switched on for every single step instead of getting a break between reps. A body that can hold its posture under a load pressed against it is a body that doesn't quietly fold under everyday weight, whether that's carrying a kid on your hip or hauling something heavy up a set of stairs. The mistake most people make here is letting their elbows drift outward as the set goes on, which pulls the weight away from your body and turns a core exercise into an arm workout instead. Keep your elbows glued to your ribs and your chest, tall the entire way. 3 rounds of 30 to 40 steps is a strong target here, resting a full minute between rounds while you shake out your arms and reset your grip on the weight. Once you start rotating through all 4 of these in the same week, a strange thing happens. Your grip gets steadier, your shoulders feel more locked in place doing ordinary things, and your core starts bracing on its own the moment you pick something up, all from a method that never once asked you to count a single rep. No machines, no complicated programming, just weight and distance, and a level of strength that carries into everything else you do. And if you want the full program that builds the foundation, you'll need to do these carries for the long haul. The link is waiting for you in the description below,